welcome back. And we're moving into our first conversation for today, talking about disaster preparedness with Councilor Phillip Willoughby. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Mom. It's always a pleasure to be here.
You know, it's always great to have this conversation before any major disaster takes place. And obviously, the one that's on the forefront of people's mind at this time when we talk about disaster preparedness is looking at the hurricane season. Now, Phillip, you've spoken many times about doing preparatory work with the communities about potential hazards they may have. How is that going at this time?
Well, that is continuous and that is always ongoing, especially in the low-lying areas, namely the Jane Osha Boulevard area. We have the Collect Extension areas, especially the Crewman Lagoon area, with all those land and bridges and so connecting. I hope they've changed some of those pallets because they were extremely rotten the last time I walked on them. I think we fell through a couple. We have that Gungulung area, the West Landiva area, and some areas behind the Belama extension, but not to exclude, again, the networks of electrical wires that connects within these two particular areas, namely the Collect Extension area and the Gungulung area, which is, of course, a hazard because you are dealing with a disaster, and within a disaster, you have a disaster. Man, that's extreme circumstances to be working on if you're a search and rescue, or even if you're in the recovery process, because everybody wants to have access to electricity and that type of thing. And it's not safe, it's not secure. So we are very mindful and careful when we traverse and navigate within these areas.
What's the primary message when you go into these communities about being prepared for disasters? We know that they're flood-prone areas. We don't even need a tropical storm to see these areas become inundated and people becoming trapped within their homes. So you cannot necessarily tell them move out if you don't have an option as to where to put them. So what is your primary message to them?
One, I would like to say, I hope they saw the weather event in Cayo over the weekend. Cayo is an extremely high area. That particular district is extremely high, and you can imagine what it would take to flood the Cayo district. We are a low-lying city, a low-lying area, especially the name areas I just mentioned. So you could imagine if we would have a weather event that they experienced last weekend. What we normally do and say is, one, stay local in terms of the information that is being provided via yourself, the newscasts, the radio station, and other media houses. Stick to that. And the general information that would come from the National Emergency Organization, stick to that. All right? Stay local with information and we will advise you. And what is happening locally on the ground, we are the ones that are on the ground who are collecting these data and information, forwarding it to NEMO, so we can collectively make an informed decision as to what to advise these very communities on how to do and how to approach as whatever system or weather pattern comes our way.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how the public can be a bit more engaged? Because we know what the challenges are, we know what the information is, but sometimes we're just a little bit too resistant to reality. So what would be some of the ways that people could be more participatory and engaged in the whole preparedness process?
Well, one, we could start if you have any concerns. I'm always available, or you can always call the council. That's on an individual basis. If you have an NGO, a business, an organization as such, where you have numbers, we don't mind to come in and do presentations to you and share with you, and then continuing the networking of working with other people, and then you can disseminate that information. Like, for example, the Belize Association of Persons living with Diverse Abilities, we are very well much engaged with them. Every sector, every agency within the city, we are pretty much well engaged with where the discussion of disaster management and emergency preparedness goes. So I'm very comforted at the level of outreach we've done and the PR that we have accomplished to the end via settings like these to provide information. We are grateful.
Now, we have some images scrolling a bit before of the last major flooding event within
Yes.
the city. And I think one of the things that we know continues to be a problem, no matter what kind of planning takes place from the city level or even from NEMO level, is having people evacuate within a timely manner.
Wow.
And I want to talk to you because obviously we've heard the messages. We deliver the messages in the media as to recommendations for persons in low-lying areas to evacuate. Have you done more consultations with people in this area to kind of understand why it is that they wait until the most dangerous time to be able to try to leave their homes when they know a leave with a rain, as we'd say, can trap them?
That is a phenomena. I don't know how long it will take for us to understand that.
Yeah.
That is the honest to God's truth.
Yeah.
That is like asking me what is the square root of Pythagoras theorem, and I don't know. I don't know. You have to ask Dr. Seuss. But setting that aside, you all in the media and others, other stakeholders, whether regionally or internationally, would ask the question, why is it that during the storm, when I speak to Hurricane Earl, why did we do the search and rescue extractions we did? Well, for me, I don't know who would be my replacement down the road, but there's one comforting underlying factor here that at the end of every disaster, for the media, the general public, the government, any political party, it's always sobering to know that I feel good that, well, at least under this UDP government, headed and led by Honorable Dean Barrow, Right Honorable Dean Barrow, that we always come out of these storms saying that we haven't had any loss of life. That's record breaking, that's phenomenal in this region
Definitely.
or area. So we thank God for that and His mercies that we haven't had to this end any loss of life. And that speaks to the work we do on the ground. All right? Committing our lives, the government's assets and resources, which is unfortunately not probably the practical and logical thing to do to expose yourself to clear and present danger, but we do it before, during, and after a storm. So we hope that the people across the country, yes, specifically Belize City, but the wider public has to understand that men and women are putting their lives in danger because you refuse to listen, you refuse to act, and by not doing so, you have exposed individual lives to clear and present danger. So we hope that after Hurricane Earl, that they got the message loud and clear, hopefully.
You know, and I think one of the lessons that people learned through the experience of Hurricane Earl was the threat that comes with storm surges.
Yes, ma'am.
Whereas surviving the wind and the rain is one thing, when the storm surge sets in, where you think you may be safe, it might not necessarily be the
Not
case.
necessarily so.
I want to talk a bit about preparations of shelters and upgrades that have been done so people can know where they can access. And if somebody now knows if 4 feet of water is going to come into my house, I have nowhere to go, they need to get to a shelter. How prepared are the shelters at this point?
The engineers are the ones who normally inspect these shelters. They are the one who gives the technical clearance for the residents of the city or whoever the occupants may be or will be to say that this structure is sound and it is safe to withstand up to Category 2, a Category 2 hurricane. That's the standard. And every year, thus since we began, that has remained the standard. So the name hurricane shelters remain the same. We are looking to include now Grace Primary School, as they got a new building in the Farbers Road extension area. So we are grateful for that. So if the needs arise and affected persons would like to use that as a shelter, then that becomes an option for them, an additional option. If it can transition to a relief and supply station, it becomes that. If it can be utilized as an incident command center for us to operate from and liaise to our EOC, then that becomes a functionary tool for us to use in times of disaster or any event. So that is where we are in terms of the shelter. But going beyond the shelters, we may note from Hurricane Earl that you have houses that were practically well built, structurally sound, two-story homes that last roof that got damaged. I would dare say, consult with your engineers. You've invested a lot in your home. It doesn't make sense you lose your home because you try to cut corners or try to shortchange the actual work that needs to be done for whatever reason. Ensure that your engineers or whoever is doing the work does it properly and according to building plans and the hurricane plans. For the smaller homes, there are little remedial things you can do. If you just go to your nearest hardware store, you could get the heel straps that straps the sill to the footing or the concrete beam of your structure. You have the hurricane straps that goes around the roof and the rafters that holds it together and secures it. So there are little things and tips you can get at your local hardware store of your choice. And please ensure you have those on your home.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, that you could do these very simple but foundational changes in order to, secure your structure and to be more prepared. As it relates to the strategic plan coming out of NEMO, what are some of the other innovations that you guys are working on or are developing in order to promote a rejuvenated sense of preparedness? Because I know that hurricanes, floods, all of these natural disasters, they're not a new phenomenon. But the things that we keep doing are they're not new either. We keep doing the same thing. So what are some of the innovations that exist within the strategic plan?
I would like to start by saying NEMO is led by the National Emergency Coordinator, Colonel Shelton Defoe. I always give him his respect. NEMO, as we know it back in 2006, a little bit of history, we had the then National Emergency Coordinator, who was Colonel Lovell. You had his second, which was Colonel Defoe, and off and on we had some coordinators who were active, inactive, and myself dealing with the city. Since then, the ministry, the department has evolved. We now have regional coordinators across the city who have secondary helps and coordinators within that jurisdiction also. So now you have a regional coordinator to look at, for example, Mr. Al Westby. He's responsible for Cayo to San Pedro. The north is Mr. Aragon, the south is Mr. Keith Emmanuel. Now, putting that structure in place, the department has also expanded. We have training coordinators, mitigation officers, engineers, and the likes. Going down to the ground level where I am, because you have to be connected with boots on the ground. I believe it is what and who you bring at the table where these discussions are. You need innovative thinkers, creative minds. You need people with experience. You need people who are knowledgeable. So this is what we have at the table, along with supporting agencies like the Coast Guard, the police. We have added now BERT is a critical part of our first responders training. So we have sought to undertake expanding and strengthening our capacity and capability. We did the exercise looking at how we respond to mass casualty situations. So now we have personnel within the council who can do this type of response. So I always have to be nimble or ambidextrous both ways, bringing these ideas and crafting it to continuing strengthening and developing the city based on what we see in these international events. I learn a lot from that. I draw down from that. I network with other agencies outside of Belize where emergency and disaster preparedness is concerned. We look at local events. We do post-mortem. We do our evaluation. So we get better. I wouldn't say 100% because every disaster comes with some diversity or uniqueness unto itself. So it's how we learn from it, draw from it,
Yeah.
take the criticism and craft it into a better solution as we engage with these events.
Now, the important element in the work that you do is obviously reaching out to people, because with the best plans in place, it is ultimately left up to the individual residents to listen to the advice that is given out and to follow through with the preferred actions. And I like what you spoke about being able to prepare for possible disasters beforehand, like the mass casualty, to know what type of actions would be executed in the event. We spoke about the evacuation, which is also very important. Tell me where you find some of the specific challenges with working in communities, especially in adhering to the advice that comes out of NEMO.
Sometimes there is a language barrier, which is true. That was post-hurricane, pre-hurricane Earl.
Okay.
During then finding what we had on the ground, we quickly did the flyers in both English and Spanish.
Yeah.
So there are hurdles, but it is how you adjust and adapt to the circumstances to get the message out.
So does that mean now that we'll probably have briefings in both Spanish and English to be
Yes,
able to?
and we have persons who are trained in sign language.
Okay.
So that is an added feature, and if we need to bring in someone to look at how we do that, then that is a plus. I mean, you watch simple things like the court things in the US, and they have.
Yeah.
We need to take the
It's a
good
common
from
practice.
what
Yeah.
we see internationally, localize it, and bring it so that we can reach out and engage with all persons.
Yeah. So we're looking at bilingual briefings.
Yes.
So that'll be one of the changes we see. What else are some of the issues that you see?
Besides that, there's the signing off shortly after Flood Mitigation Infrastructure Project 1. Again, we want to move from projects and more going to program, because when a project is completed, it is done, and then you left with one project with a high overhead cost to maintain. We are working with partnering agencies to look at a flood mitigation project 2. You see what we have done and what we are doing currently with the study and analysis and data collection for the canals. We are hopeful that we get a flood mitigation project 2. So, like I said, we are engaging all around via the government and the municipality to look at these challenges and find long-lasting solution for Belize City, well, at least this municipality here.
To what extent would you say the city is its own detriment in terms of the way that it's structured and set up?
Well, it would always be the search and rescue transport committee. I think I state the committee's name because that is the committee responsible for transporting persons who want to evacuate the city. We know that there's 2 highways, 2 bridges, and if we get cut off or locked off, then what are the then options to get across, or how do we communicate, or how do we get relief and supplies and other government assets within the Belize City area if we are disconnected. For example, we are looking at an exercise. If it is that the pattern or the trajectory path that Earl took, Ladyville, remember now the NEMO warehouse is in Ladyville, we need relief and supplies. What would happen if we were disconnected by the bridges on both highways? So we are looking at how is it that the relief and supplies national committee along with the local committee within the Belize City municipality can seek to at least hold in a warehouse at least 500 plus ready to eat meals if we are disconnected. This is the thought process. This leadership and this quality that is being discussed at the table, we have to look at it. And like I said, we look at these events and we draw from it and we study from it so we become better the next time around. So it is with that in mind, how we seek to undertake every day the events and anomalies that we have to contend with, and how we respond, and giving residents the confidence to believe in us.
Definitely.
This is also a time where even the city itself is prepared for the possibility of storms. And before we started, you were talking about liaising with the Belize Electricity Limited to look at potential threats when it comes to what may affect the electricity lines. Let's talk about that a bit.
Right. If you would traverse the city right now, you would see a lot of overgrown trees or vegetation in certain lines. I recall CEO Jeffrey Locke. You normally never see a CEO on the ground with his linemen. I believe after Hurricane Earl, one of those tall trees, if you are familiar with Albert Street West, corner Racecourse Street, a huge tree fell over a fence and fell on his lines, on the lines. We had to get out there and cut this tree and that type of thing. If it is that you need to engage with the city so we can come in and do some of this work, fine, we are willing to do so, because the disruption of electricity, no one wants to have before, after, during a storm.
Yeah.
And it could be accidental or incidental, or it could be intentional. But we can mitigate against that. So call the council so we can come in and deal with that.
So if I see a tree that is very close to a line, I can contact the council.
Yes.
So that.
Or BEL.
Okay.
And as for Ms. Osha or Mr. Raul Villanueva, he is the contact person I liaise with, and vice versa. And we will get on that and look into it. What I did propose to the minister over the weekend when I was in Cayo, Mr. Honorable Figueroa, was that we have so much flora and fauna in the city.
Yeah.
If you look at the amount of trees, limbs, bushes that showed up after post-Hurricane Earl.
Yeah.
Now we have to cut these trees up. We have to pick them up via a backhoe or front-end loader, put it in a dump truck, look at the cars, transport it then to the transfer station. Then if it is we need to bulldoze it, we bulldoze it and cap it. Or if not, we have to transport it to the landfill, look at the cars.
Okay.
I suggested to him, let's engage and see if we can get some of the huge tree cutters so we can shred these trees, get a byproduct or secondary product that can go back into the community.
Definitely.
And we can use this as compost or mulch or whatever, or just general yard fill. And that works. And it's environmentally friendly and environmentally sound. So we are exploring that avenue, and that will in turn reduce costs. I was directed I can engage with Ms. Wade over at the UNDP office. There's the possibility of a project that we can use. And if it works well, we duplicate it across the other municipalities and other jurisdictions if it works. And it will be a cost-saving initiative and mechanism.
Because we definitely don't want to get rid of all the trees, because of course they have their own benefits, you know, helping us with clean air and all of those things.
Yes.
So I think that's really innovative.
But this is just the ones that are encroaching within their lines, one. If or before, during a disaster, people are landscaping. If you're landscaping your property, it's an old tree and you feel as if though it will affect you, call us in and then the shredder will come in, handle it. And I recall one situation on Rivera Street. I didn't know the roots of the tree were under the home. It was a teacher home, won't call her name. And the tree fell. And so did the tree fell. It ripped out the wall, undermining the home, taking the fence also. But I presume they didn't know, or maybe they did. But it is with these in mind, with that in mind, when you're constructing a fence, be careful of the trees because they run under the earth, or be careful of where you build your home and where you plant, because it might undermine your home.
Or do a proper evaluation of your property as well.
Yeah. So we're quickly running out of time, and we really wanted to have this conversation when there is no threat of a disaster, so people can keep in mind the information that they need to know. What is your advice, and especially since you work within Belize City, what is your advice to Belize City residents to stay prepared and to get their homes, their property, their plans prepared for the possibility of any disaster?
Well, I go back to say we are always engaging. There's 13 national committees headed by CEOs. The ministers are at the policy level in the cabinet with the Prime Minister, who is the ultimate chairman of CEMO, guided by his minister. That is replicated across the country on the lower levels. I say first to the villages, get prepared, because you never know when it is your village may be affected.
Yeah.
Get prepared. Know your surroundings. Listen to the relevant information and stay local.
Yeah.
That is all I can say where the villages are concerned. In the municipalities, likewise, stay local with the information. Network, support each other, advise each other, convince each other that when NEMA puts out these information via our local media houses, listen to it, take heed, look at lessons learned, look at the impacts, and don't let yourself be caught again. That is it.
Yeah.
Don't let yourself be caught again. Where you say, one time I used, shame for me, two times.
Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah.
take warning, take it, and like I said, more importantly, greater than any accomplishment or degrees and so forth. It's always a blessing to know we come out unscathed. That may not always be the case.
Yeah.
And don't lose your life or your loved one's lives because you simply refuse to listen.
Your own negligence.
That is on you, and that
Yeah.
would be maybe a black eye on me, and that would force me to walk away because I don't know how I'll be able to deal with that. You know, some of these consequences we need to live with, but let us heed the warnings. Let us listen,
Yeah.
all right, and take the right advice. That is important and key.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you for stopping in and having this conversation with us now. And we hope that people have been listening, and we know that NEMO as well as CEMO, and we work a lot with the Met Office, try
Yeah.
to keep us
They do an excellent job.
aware of any potential threat. And we hope that people have their plans in place and also will pay attention to whatever comes out of our local authorities.
Did you know there's a website for the Met Office?
Yes.
And then you could
A
log
new
right
one,
in,
yeah.
a new website, you go online, and you can check the weather yourself locally.
In fact, our radars are even more precise than the ones that people tend to tune into internationally.
Yeah,
Yes.
of
But
course.
we try to keep reminding people of that. But once again, Councilor Willoughby, we appreciate you stopping in.
Thank you
We have to
for
go
having
ahead.
me.
Yeah, we have to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, it's to talk with representatives of the Rotary Club of Belize Sunrise and a group that they're working with for a teacher training. So stay tuned.